Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Medical Mindset Coach podcast. And I am your host, Star Freudenberg. And hopefully brief, but today's topic I'd like to talk about is the Mr. Old vitamin D. Obviously, for all of those who know me, I'm based in the UK at the moment, but originally from South Africa. And as the climate goes, we are finally veering into winter. And the most important vitamin I think that people need to ensure that they are consuming or taking in some way and form during the winter months is vitamin D. Vitamin D, I would say, is a vitamin that really is important for helping to regulate calcium and phosphate in the body. And what I want you to think when I say those terms is to think of bones, teeth, healthy muscles. Very interesting fact that I learned when I studied nutrition is that your body will need vitamin D naturally, and if it hasn't got enough of it, it will then steal calcium from your bones. So you need to have vitamin D in your system in order to absorb calcium from whatever way and form you consume it, whether it's through supplement or through food. Otherwise, that will steal, the body's best intelligence, it will take it from somewhere. And this is what ends up developing or causing arthritic type conditions, osteoporosis, bone deficiencies, bone deformities, even things such as rickets in children. Maybe you may have heard of this. And it's quite problematic because, again, in my work, I'm starting to see more and more people being diagnosed with these arthritic type conditions. And to a point whether it might just be through massive deficiency for a prolonged period of time, or an autoimmune condition such as rheumatoid arthritis that, you're diagnosed or born with, or develops at some point through a trigger in your life. And it really does have a massive impact on your life. So what am I basically doing here today is just trying to get that information out there to just say, sun is starting to disappear. That means start consuming vitamin D more, right? It's very interesting. I've started to learn, or have learned through meeting different patients, that vitamin D deficiencies can actually result in other conditions other than just arthritic conditions itself. So it can also result in different health risks affecting the brain. So again, also very common, or more commonly being diagnosed as things such as depression or schizophrenia, or sort of low hormonal moods that will affect the brain. In your circulatory system or cardiovascular system, these are things that can induce high blood pressure, coronary heart disease. In your muscles, you can get aches and weaknesses, and sometimes atrophy as well. Respiratory, through the respiratory system, we can think about things like asthma and wheezing. Another very common condition that's being diagnosed at the moment is diabetes, because it will be affecting the pancreas. And in this case, more specifically, type 1. So just high level, type 1, type 2, you will have heard of these things, but what does it mean? Type 1 is when you're actually diagnosed from when you're a child, and is medicated and will obviously need to be regulated throughout. Whereas type 2 is when you're diagnosed later in life, when you're an adult. And I'm going to use the word, if you are lucky, you might not need to be medicated and can be managed or hopefully put into remission when you've controlled your diet and sort of lifestyle and habits and stress to get your body into a state that's manageable and hopefully reversible. And again, lastly, the one that I spoke about is bones, right? So rickets or osteoporosis type thing. Other very interesting one that, again, very common in the work that I'm seeing at the moment is polycystic ovaries. So there is an interesting link between PCOS and vitamin D deficiency, which will be affecting moods and also weight management, weight control. That women that I see with this condition just basically are swelling up to and might not even be eating anything as well. So it's very, very interesting. And then the knock-on effect with that, which is most common in women to have children, is that they are infertile or unable to have kids as a result of this condition. So most important in one, when you're being diagnosed with the condition. Two is, let's just get back to basics and see what are you nutritionally deficient in. And it's quite common to see vitamin D deficiency. I see it all the time because one of the things that I do is that I get people in to do, I would call it an essential health check. So we take your blood and we send it to the lab. So the common test that we do is checking your B12, your B9, or also known as your folate. We'll check your iron levels, we check your vitamin D levels, we check your cholesterol, and then various indicators or markers of your liver. So checking your heart health, your liver health, and then sort of most important vitamins. And whether or not it's because we live in the UK and the exposure of sun is not at its maximum as it should be compared to other countries, if you think in Asia or Australia or South Africa, where I'm from, or various parts in the Americas. And then we're thinking about places like, you don't see the sun at all. I'm thinking extreme, like Antarctica, Iceland, Greenland, Canada, when it can get to minus 40, really, really crazy temperatures, and also in the Nordic regions. So it can be quite impactful, but again, it's not, I would say, common knowledge that people just go, yeah, okay, do you know how important vitamin D is in the body and what prolonged deficiency can cause, and again will result in these conditions that will become so impactful on your life that it will eventually cause mental health issues as well, because you can't do sustained things for a long period of time, or maybe might get bedridden or always in pain, which can be quite a massive distraction. So people at high risk of not getting enough vitamin D, all children, even age from 1 to 4, and babies, they should be having a daily supplement. So I've just written down a couple of sources of food that I think that are quite interesting to know. And it's also foods that I see not everyone loves, and especially now with, I'm going to call it the new era or the new age, where everyone's becoming vegan or plant-based, and the sources where you can find vitamin D are in oily fish, and common one you'll hear is salmon, sardines, herring, and mackerel. You'll get it in red meat, eating liver. I don't advocate eating liver personally, because the liver, it's a superior organ in the body, but it holds all the toxins of the body. So if you're eating liver from, for example, I've seen you can eat chicken livers, you're then consuming also the toxins, as well as you might be getting a couple of the benefits. I don't think, when I do a cost-benefit analysis, that it's worth eating liver, which also gets translated into, pate as well, which is quite a common French delicacy as an appetizer. You'll get it in egg yolks, and nowadays with, I'm going to call it genetically modified food, where things are being put in to just make it somewhat more nutritious from what they already are. We call it fortified food. So I know in Australia, as an example, that margarine has to be fortified with vitamin D. And then in other places, it's just, you'll get fortified foods where you'll find fat spreads, breakfast cereals. It might not only be vitamin D, also obviously commonly like iron or Bs, that kind of thing. So your next best option, and now the problem is, depending on your level of deficiency, you might be consuming something, but next step is, how is your digestive system and your gut health? That are you actually in a space and your metabolism, that your body can actually break down food sufficiently that you can absorb the nutrition of it. So this is a very, like, probably 99% of the problem I see with the patients I help. People's systems are not working correctly due to how they've been carrying out their life. And now as a result of that, no matter what you're consuming, you're not getting the maximum benefit of it. So for me, I always call it the phase 1, where we're going through the detox period, where we've got to clean, flush out, and detoxify the body. And then next one is the nutritional phase, where we start to supplement, we boost of, whether it's supplementation, whether it's drips, that kind of thing. And then eventually, when you are at that point, we can get you into the maintenance phase, where we can just start maintaining your body and really getting it to, in the place that you need it to be, where you want it to be, and just with a lot more energy and a lot more health, and just getting your vehicle running as if it's had like a massive service. So like I said, I see quite commonly a lot of people who are recently turned or have been for a long time vegan or plant-based. So the most two key factors of deficiencies I see is vitamin D and B, so most commonly B12. So again, these people either, again, it's very popular at the moment. If you are one of these people, I suggest, I like to say the first step to see getting a blood test. It's one test that I do, send it to the lab, get back the feedback where your levels are at. And then we can look at supplementing it with either nutrition, where you can either get onto a vitamin D supplement. On average, a tablet has about 5,000 IU in it, which is good. But if you're very depleted, I know a couple of cases where people have been to see the GP originally before they turned to alternative medicine. And you can get a prescribed only, I'm going to call it a mega dose tablet that you take with vitamin D in it. How easy is it to break down in the body? I'm not quite sure, but anything that your body can absorb from where you are at is obviously much better. But a much faster route and a less admin intensive route that I offer at my clinic, aside from supplementation, if we do like kinesiology, for example, or blood tests, is I do a vitamin D injection. And I find that to be very, very helpful because it has 300,000 IU units that go straight into the bloodstream. I inject it into the muscle and quite commonly through the arm. And from that, the beauty of the admin is that the injection lasts for 3 months. So you just come in, you get a jab, and you don't think about it at all. Which is really, really helpful, I think, because most of the time people are swallowing things left, right, and center, and again, we're human, so we're subject to being lazy or forgetting or running out and not having things on time. And we just want to keep that cycle and structure and strategy rolling with the routine. Another thing a lot of people don't know, for people with darker skin, so we're talking about Asian or African people, as a result of the pigmentation levels, best way I can explain it, it's like the darker the skin, more it's blocking the UV rays from the sun to be absorbed through the skin. So traditionally speaking, they are at risk or do have noticeably lower levels of vitamin D compared to, just going to say like the average white person, right? And now if you are a non-white person living in the UK, I would say, okay, you need to definitely get on to vitamin D, because a lot of people suffer from conditions and they just think maybe it's a genetic thing according to the specific race that they are. When actually, no, it's just, again, customized to the individual per your need. Maybe you need more than the average person. But again, I'm trying to lift the veil of ignorance and get people into the know and go, oh, I didn't know that. Let me get this sorted for myself, and let me tell all of my people around me, within my circle, friends, family, work colleagues, children, and, let the word spread so people can, again, become more informed, making more educated decisions. And again, the stance that I'm working on is just trying to get people to start doing stuff now. That means that in the future we can prevent or mitigate or really significantly reduce health disorders, that would be resulting physically, and then will translate into emotional and then most likely mental health as well. So, just do stuff now, get on it, and, avoid so much drama in the future. And this is why I keep reiterating to people. A lot of people only go see a specialist or some expert of some kind when they're feeling unwell or when it's become an extreme case. And I just think it would be good, invest in yourself, go out there, get a general check, whether you go to, I would say more probably in this case, alternative medicine practitioners or holistic doctors, because they will give your whole body a service, if you will, that they'll just give everything a check. Whereas if you go to the GP, they programmed, tell me what your problem is, and then we will diagnose. Whereas if you go to someone who's working with the whole, I think a really good therapy in this case is kinesiology. If you haven't heard of it, you can look at my website or just Google it, which is just basically we can ask the body where you at the moment through the use of muscle testing. And just say, okay, cool, what do you need? What don't you want? What do you need to avoid? What do you need more of? What is a priority right now? And then you just basically keep servicing, doing small service checks regularly that would prevent you needing a big service, and obviously paying a lot more, I would say time and financially as well as emotionally. So yes. What else did I want to say about vitamin D deficiency? So people go, all right, this is very interesting what you're saying, but what does symptoms of vitamin D deficiency look like? And what am I going to say now? I've just listed a couple, but these are going to be symptoms. You're going to be like, I have that. Oh, I've experienced that. Oh, I sometimes get that. So it makes you think, maybe you should get this checked, right? So if you're listening to this from anywhere else in the world or, not accessible to where I am, please do go either to a specialist or usually privately is better, I would say, because like for example, here the NHS are not really as supportive or have the funding to support checking, whereas unless you have a genuine problem, yeah? So I think this is something you need to already factor into your mind. Maybe I need it, but I need to go the private route. Right. So symptoms that show vitamin D deficiency in your body. 1, excessive sweating. Fatigue. I think everyone knows. Digestive problems. Super common. Immune impairment, so low immune system, getting sick, always getting flu-like symptoms, etc. Next one is joint pain. Next one is dry skin. Next one is high blood pressure, also very common I see at the moment. Next one, mood swings. Very touchy subject, I would say, because, there is just personality specific that people are moody and temperamental, but there is I would say often a misdiagnosis or confusion between someone who's just again nutritionally deficient versus someone who actually has a genuine mental health disorder. And again, the problem I often see with the people that come to me in my work is that it's just boiled down to a vitamin deficiency, and people have been put onto medications for mental health conditions, and actually it was a misdiagnosis. And this is something really, really important that I like to focus on, because it's a subject that, people go to the doctors, but doctors only treat you when you say, I have a problem, and then give you a solution, but it's not necessarily a correct one. It's sometimes just, you've seen this case 1,000 times, you assume it's this and you prescribe for it. And it's sort of like a one-dimensional mindset. Whereas, of course, when you come to an alternative medicine practitioner or holistic doctor, we look at the whole. So we're looking mind, body, soul. And most commonly in my work, I see it's just you've had a nutritional deficiency, and as a result, you're experiencing things differently. And that, again, is a very good indicator because the body's communicating to you that something's off kilter, something's not in sync, or out of balance, and we just need something to put us back into balance. So I always use the analogy that our vehicle is like a car, and the warning signals are coming on saying something's up, because if we never had it, we'd never know where our health was at. And, you know, I think it's better this way. Like, for example, I think something quite dramatic, but it's, imagine if you lived your life very unhealthily, not knowing what was deficient, not eating good diet, and then you just died at 38, like, poof. And you go, well, I wish the body told me that something was wrong, right? So the body is showing that you're normally like a certain way, and now you're often like this, figure out what's happening. And then, of course, at the moment, people are living in or with the veil of ignorance because they don't have enough information. This kind of information's not, it's available, but we're living in a technological era where everything is really, there's too much information at the moment, and you don't actually know where to start now. And those are the problems with information on the internet. Depending on what you look for, you can see the pros for it or the negatives for it, and they can be completely opposing and opposite. So it leaves people confused. And again, a huge motivation of why I'm doing these podcasts is just to get you in the know. Right. And then the last symptom that I see, or that I'm aware of with vitamin D deficiency, is being overweight. A very good example is I have one client, she eats basically nothing. Like, if you had to have a meal a day, she would eat a quarter of it and nothing for the rest of the day, but pushing near 100 kilograms or 220 pounds. And when you hear a story like that, you think, wow, that's just impossible, you know. Then you start to allude to things like, oh, you know, maybe she's secret eating or not really being honest. But the truth is that was her situation at the time. And turned out that she had polycystic ovaries, and when finally went to the hospital because, you know, with all of these symptoms, just gaining weight massively, terrible mood swings, was diagnosed with extremely or chronic low deficiency in vitamin D, and then got put onto prescription level medication with vitamin D. And since then, it's as if she's a new person, you know, just weight has come back into its natural state. Her moods are much better, not experiencing mental health issues anymore, and really just getting back into an ebb and flow of things. So, you know, a lot of these symptoms are very common. A lot of people brush them off. A lot of people, again, always using this, I'm going to use this, you know, this common phrase, oh, I'm just getting old. Maybe you're not. Maybe it's just genuinely you have a deficiency, but you don't know what it is. And this brings me to the point to encourage people to do checks. You know, I think, to be quite honest, wherever you are in the world, this is stuff that you'd have to spend in a private capacity, because at the NHS in UK, for example, you know, public healthcare, they only treat you if you have a severe problem. They don't go, oh, maybe we should check this out, or maybe we should do this. It's like it works on a problem solving model. Massive problem, will give you a solution, whether it's the correct one or not. Whereas if you go to an alternative medicine practitioner, holistic doctor, they're going to go, okay, let's look at the whole, let's see where you're at and see if there is something that's relevant. You know, it doesn't harm or hurt you to say, okay, let's just go for a checkup. You know, if you do that for cars, and you do that for repairing equipment, and you do that for phones, and why do we not do it for our most valued asset in the world, our own body, right? Our body's health, our mental health, etc. So I find that quite interesting, and I just want to, again, just throw this golden nugget out there just to reshift the focus and place value on what is the most important thing, actually, and that's you, right? So there is, of course, the suggestion to go outside and get, because we call it the happy vitamin or the happy hormone, vitamin D. And the most common way that you're going to get it is through exposure from the sun. And of course, if you live in a climate that doesn't facilitate a lot of sun, where I'm thinking extreme places like Antarctica or Canada in the winter, or Nordic countries or Iceland, Greenland type things, versus places very exposed, like where I'm from, South Africa or Australia, or maybe even Mexico, I'm thinking that's hot, in different parts of Asia as well. You know, the body needs different levels. And then dropping down further, if we're going race specific, the lighter you are in your complexion, the easier it is for your body to absorb the UV rays and therefore able to generate vitamin D and convert it into the body. Whereas if you're Asian or African and you have a darker complexion, I almost want you to imagine that it's almost like a sunblock, that your skin pigmentation is blocking the absorption of the UV rays. And as a result, statistically speaking, non-white people are at higher risk of vitamin D deficiency. And I work a lot with I would say actually with everyone, but I would say I work with a lot of people who've come to me that are not white, and they haven't known that information. And again, a lot has changed since being informed and giving vitamin D. And then again, the moods have improved, weight management has improved, fatigue levels have improved. So again, it's just about getting that awareness out there. But yeah, so especially if you're a non-white person living in a non-sunny country, so really, really important. But when going outside, another T&C that people, or awareness people don't know necessarily, is that just because there's clouds covering the sun doesn't mean that there's no UV exposure. It's actually proven that it's a higher UV exposure, so you can still go out and get some sun exposure to help support some vitamin D. You don't want to go out and be fully covered. You need as much surface area of skin exposed, so maybe your arms or your lower legs, your face, whatever you can to do so. For someone with a fairer or lighter complexion, we're talking on average like 10 to 15 minutes exposure, ideally per day. Whereas someone with a more medium to darker complexion, we're talking about like average of like 20 to 30 minutes a day. That would be very helpful. And just, one point that I want to point out about, people think now like, ooh, they listen to this podcast, they're like, ooh, I need to up my vitamin D. I don't actually know, like I am a vegan, I am a plant-based, I'm not going out in the sun, I'm working all day in the office, Don't just start going and swallowing a lot of vitamin D tablets to think you're going to boost, because there is a problem that if you over consume vitamin D, this can cause an impact on the body where you you can cause too much calcium buildup in the body, which over a long period of time. Okay, so if you had to hypothetically already swallow the tablets while you're listening to this podcast, and now you're like, oh, I've done it. We're talking for extended or long period of time, right? But this basically can cause too much calcium building up in the body, or hypercalcemia, and this can weaken the bones and damage two major organs, being your kidneys and your heart. So you definitely don't want to do it. So again, really, really important. And to reiterate, do this with an expert. Don't think you are an expert, because sometimes what you think you're doing might not be the right thing, and you might be causing more damage than good. And there are some people who have medical conditions that might not be able to consume vitamin D or too much vitamin D, because various means of whatever condition they could have. I can't give any specifics offhand. But you cannot overdose through too much exposure to the sun. But again, our next problem, with the ozone layer, it's always important to remember to cover up and protect your skin. Not be there for excessive or prolonged periods of time because of, the risk now of skin cancer or risk of skin damage. We have to play within the realms of the conditions that we're in or living with at the moment. So I think that's really important. So I think protocol for people is you come in, you do the blood test, see where you're at and see what kind of symptoms you're experiencing, because this might indicate maybe low D or maybe Bs or maybe everything. And I always recommend a therapy that is a holistic therapy that is always highly recommended, called kinesiology. And that's talking about a therapy using your muscles in your body to explain what your body needs. It sounds very alien, it sounds very complex, but I think it's a fantastic modality, very customized to the individual, that your body can communicate what it needs without just taking things generically, or, for example, being prescribed something generically from the GP. And we can really take it to the next level. It's nothing invasive, and something you can do as often as you need. And any type of thing that you're experiencing, emotional, physical, trauma, mind, body, soul, that kind of thing, it ticks all the boxes because it's a fully all-encompassed modality in one. That's, really, really taking off, I think, internationally. It's been around for quite some time, but I think now the popularity of it is growing at quite a rapid pace. So do check it out if you need to know more. There's videos online on YouTube. I've got one on my YouTube channel explaining. There's on a service page on the website, so it's explaining a little bit more what it's about. But again, this can also pick up about, does your body need vitamin D or not? Or we can do all three if you're really, really into it. But there is key importance in vitamin D, and I just thought, as winter is upon us, winter is coming, we need to just be on form with knowing where you're at, where you stand with it, and trying to, one, prevent all of these symptoms that you might be experiencing or would experience, and just get you in, again, to a better state of health, so you can be in a state of balance and really just take on the world. All right, so on that note, we're going to wrap up on vitamin D today. Again, always looking forward to hearing your feedback, especially when you come into clinic saying like, oh, you didn't know these things, or maybe you think you need to have this checked. Or if you are anywhere else in the world, just going locally and finding practitioners locally that can help and assist you as well. All right. Have a great day wherever you are in the world. Get out, get a little bit of sun, and just get your smiles on, I think, is really good. We're getting near the end of the year where people are starting to sort of, I'm going to use words, drag their feet and just go like, oh, when is Christmas coming? I just want to break now, or tired. It's been month end and I just, spending's tight because costs are going up over winter, and you have to buy everyone Christmas presents and all of that. So just think, namaste, everything's okay. Yeah? Cool. Have a good day. Bye.